Hello friends, what's up? It's Jamie here. Welcome back to another Fangirl Fridays video. These are the videos where I make all my favorite things everyone else's problem. As this is my last Fangirl Fridays video of 2024, I thought that it would be fun to do a tier list ranking everything that I watched this year and just kind of going through why I rank things the way I did. So I'm going to start at D tier because that's my lowest tier on this particular tier list and work my way up from there. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Alright, as you can see, my D tier is pretty empty, which I consider a good thing. I feel like I really enjoyed most of the things that I watched this year, not including No Hard Feelings and Fate the Wing Saga. I've actually already made videos about what I didn't like about No Hard Feelings and Fate the Wing Saga. I think you might be able to guess by the run times of each video which one I might have despised the most out of the two. But the short version is that No Hard Feelings just wasn't particularly funny to me, even though it's supposed to be a comedy, and reinforced ace-phobic stereotypes that, I didn't jive with. And Fate the Wing Saga was a poorly constructed, poorly written, so poorly written Winx Club adaptation, which, as a lifelong fan of Winx Club, really, really pissed me off. I could see how, people would potentially like No Hard Feelings since I know what kind of comedy they were going for. It just was not for me. That combined with the ace-phobic undertones just left a bad taste in my mouth. Though its one saving grace for me was Andrew Barthelme's rendition of Man Eater. I would listen to literally anything that Andrew Barthelme sings ever. So that's not super surprising for me. But oh my god, I cannot I can't understand. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if it's like your favorite show, but I can't understand how people could stomach Fate the Wing Saga because besides being a terrible Winx Club adaptation, it's also just a really bad show. Like, it's not entertaining. Every character is so flat. Again, I made a 55-minute video explaining all of my grievances about that show. So I don't want to repeat myself too much. Everything I needed to say, I've already said. But basically, Fate the Wing Saga by far was the worst thing that I watched in 2024. Moving on up to C tier. Again, pretty sparse, so this is not going to take us too long. Tomodachi Game, I think, was my biggest letdown of the year. It wasn't a bad anime per se, and definitely was not the worst thing that I watched this year, but I just think that I had really high expectations that Tomodachi Game was going to, the actual, the Tomodachi Game was going to be more like Squid Games, like super deadly with really high stakes, and it wasn't that, which I recognize is, mostly my fault for having that expectation. But I feel like, unless I'm misremembering it, I remember people telling me that it was like this really intense psychological thriller, but I just didn't really feel like the stakes were actually that high or that I cared enough about the characters to be actually concerned about what happened to them. Though I did like the main character, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I actually really did like him. He kind of gave me Light Yagami vibes if Light Yagami hadn't fully embraced his twisted personality and ideals and was have more struggling, having a moral dilemma. Again, I didn't hate Tomodachi Game. It definitely was not the worst thing that I watched this year. And genuinely, I might even spin back if it gets a season 2. I don't know if it's going to. I haven't looked into that because I am at least a little curious about what happens. Or if the manga is any good, I might give it a read. We will see. I also really wanted to like Children of the Whales, but I feel like it suffered so much from being such a short series because, in contrast, like to Tomodachi Game, I was really interested in the world building and I actually really liked several of the characters, but I feel like there were too many questions and conflicts left unresolved and unaddressed by the end of the anime, which was really unfortunate. Again, not a bad anime per se, but I feel like it definitely needed more episodes. I don't know if there's any plans to give it another season because it's been several years since it came out, but I would actually check it out if another season ever came out. But because it is just the one season, it is unfortunately a C tier for me. Moving on up to B tier. This is where you're going to start to see a lot more shows and movies starting from this tier upwards. it's only going to get more crowded. Starting with Only Murders in the Building. This was actually the first show that I watched in 2024, and I thought that it was just so cute, very cozy. I'm not big into true crime at all, but I do like a good mystery, so I like that the murder mysteries in this show aren't super grisly. Also, the unlikely friendship between Charles, Oliver, and Mabel is so precious to me. I just love them all so much and their dynamics with each other. And they're also like immensely autistic coded, and I just relate to all of them in different ways. Like this is just such a like a this is very much like a comfort show to me. I definitely will say I think that I preferred the first and the second seasons over like the third and the fourth seasons, but I still really enjoyed it. I definitely recommend this show. Okay, next we have Popstar Academy Cat's Eye. This marks the beginning of me slowly, very slowly, getting into K-pop. I know that Cat's Eye isn't quite K-pop, but they're like K-pop adjacent. Actually, I'm not even sure. I don't know if they're considered K-pop or not. I don't really know. But anyway, I literally put this show on a few weeks ago because I was bored, which is very not like me. Something you need to know about me is that I like to schedule everything in my life, and that includes when I watch the shows and movies that I plan on watching. Like, I literally block out weeks in my Google Calendar. So, besides like YouTube and TikTok, I'm really not the type of person to just put something on for the hell of it. At least something new. Like if I'm rewatching something, I'll just put it on. But if it's something that I haven't seen, it's gonna be the first time I've ever seen it. I won't just like typically just again put it on at random. But again, I was bored and vaguely familiar with the song Touch, though unfamiliar with Cat's Eye as a group, and I ended up putting on this show and getting myself and Adam hooked within the week. Adam, my boyfriend, we were both so stressed for these poor girls, and we really felt for them because they were so young and just trying to make their dreams come true. And again, I'm so extremely new to the world of K-pop, so I'm really not well versed in survival shows like this, but I literally give every single one of those girls major props. I cannot even imagine the pressure that they were under, and I literally never could have done what they did, literally because I can't dance, but you know what I mean. Adam and I we both agreed that we found like some of the, I don't know, some of the higher ups like to be kind of weird and like shifty. We were like, I don't know if we trust some of these some of these higher execs, but we were also it made us both really happy to see that at least from what we could tell, again with everything and like editing and whatnot, that the girls did have adults that actually cared about their mental health and well-being, which is so important, and we're glad that they had that support. And that despite the shows again and like the execs bullshit, the producers bullshit attempts to stir up unnecessary drama, again from what I can tell from the girls on social media, that they have really developed such a beautiful and supportive sisterhood since the whole experience, which was so special to me, and I thought it was really important and sweet. Like the girls messages to the Cat's Eye members for the reunion recently, oh my gosh, those made me cry. Those made me so emotional. I really hope that every single one of these incredibly talented girls is thriving and becomes so successful in whatever they want to do, because literally like they are all they were all so talented, and I just I'm rooting for them. And I've also quickly become a huge Cat's Eye fan because I've become so invested in their journey. So I'm really excited to see what they do next. Okay, so Sailor Moon Crystal has been on my watch list, my anime watch list, for forever. I know that Sailor Moon is such an iconic and beloved anime, so I knew that I was going to watch it eventually. And since Sailor Moon Crystal is like the more updated version, I was like, let me start with this. And I thought that it was cute. I can see why people love it, but I did have a couple of problems with it. Nothing that completely ruined the show for me, but things that definitely prevented me from putting it any higher than B tier. For example, every villain felt like a copy paste of each other. Like all of them have very similar objectives, and all their personalities are like pretty much the same. Like I couldn't you put a gun to my head right now, I could not name a single Sailor Moon villain. Like they have different designs, like in terms of like their looks, like I can like recognize them, but like I there's not really much else besides their designs, at least to me, that I feel like distinguishes them from each other. They all just feel like carbon copies of each other, again, in terms of motivations and their goals. So that was a big thing for me. The other big thing was that I really wish that the Sailor Scouts, like, that we got to see them do like some kind of training to earn the power ups that they got over the course of the series, because it just felt like every time Sailor Moon or anyone else needed a boost in power, they got it just because the plot needed them to have it, and not because they had been actively working towards achieving that power up. Again, none of these things completely soured my viewing experience, but it did make the anime feel a bit repetitive. The main thing that kept me watching was that I really liked the Sailor Scouts. My personal favorites were Sailor Mercury and Sailor Mars, but I also wish that we would have gotten more of their Earth backstories. I thought that would have been really cool. And okay, this is my last like big thing. Look, I know that Sailor Moon and Tuxedo Mask are this like iconic anime couple. I get that, I understand that, but yes, it did give me the major ick that he was 17 and she was 14 when they started dating. I'm sorry, I don't care that the age of consent is what, like 16 or 14 or whatever in Japan. I don't care. It's still gross. It's still yucky. Ugh. Also, I like Sailor Moon. I like Usagi as a person, but I felt that it was very weird. Again, the whole like this is why I feel so weird and uncomfy about all these like age gap things. But it's like I felt that it was very weird that they made her so jealous of Chibiusa, who was a literal like a elementary school age child, and they presented her as almost like a legitimate romantic rival for Mamoru. Like, what? Why the who? What? What? That was so. I was like, ugh. I was like, ugh, yucky. I did not like that at all. And again, like overall, I did still enjoy Sailor Moon Crystal, even with all my graves. Like it was cute. The outfits, fantastic. But it just was not the best thing I've seen this year. Again, I can see why people would like it and love it. I'm sure people have a lot of nostalgia for it, but it's just not really for me, and that's okay. Darwin's Game had the same problem as Children of the Whales for me, in that it was much too short of an anime. However, I feel like Darwin's Game did a much better job at executing the story in the episodes that they had, and I really liked most of the characters. I feel like it's definitely helped because Children of the Whales was much more of like this fantasy like anime and like story, and so there was a lot more world building and whatnot involved. Whereas Darwin's Game, while again having like the fantastical elements of this like game where it's like you have to either like kill people or die, like that kind of thing, right? Like that it's still like grounded enough in reality that there's not too much, again, besides like the rules and the metrics of the game itself. Like you don't really have to establish that much. Like it still takes place in Japan. And unlike Tomodachi Game, the stakes in Darwin's Game were, like, I felt were very high and tangible because people could actually die, like at any point, really. Well, within again the rules and the metrics of the game. So I was genuinely invested in what happened to the characters. I also really liked Kaname as a main character, though Rain was my personal favorite character out of the bunch. But I really liked like pretty much all the main characters. I really liked. Again, I'm bummed that the anime is only 11 episodes, because even though I felt like they did a good job of wrapping up that first arc, I could tell that they were setting up for how Kaname has changed as a person after his friend was killed, which I know is like a spoiler, sorry. And I want to see like how all that plays out and like how much he's really changed. And I just want to learn more about the other characters and see how they go about like clearing the game and whatnot. Like I'm really invested. So I guess unless the anime gets another season again, it's been a couple of years I think since Darwin's Game, since the first season came out. I'm gonna have to pick up the manga because I need to know what happens next. Like I'm very curious. I first heard of Beans and wanted to watch it because I knew that Gowendio and Rainbow Dickerson were in it and that they play mother and daughter, which I think is really cute because they also play mother and daughter in Netflix's Avatar: The Last Airbender. I like this movie. I wasn't familiar with the Oka Crisis before watching, and I feel like Tracy Deer did a really good job with blending the narrative, semi-autobiographical elements with the real life like news clips. It was very informative. It's a pretty standard coming of age story, but I thought it was really cool to see one centered around an Indigenous family. This is only my second time seeing a coming of age story centered around an Indigenous main character, Indigenous family. The first time was when I watched Boy when I was in college, and I'm not really like super big into coming of age stories. I am much more like just like coming of age stories on their own. I'm much more of a fantasy girl, but it's a solid movie. You should check it out. It's been a while since I've talked about this on the channel, but something that you need to know about me is that I am a massive Rachel Zegler fan. She is my favorite actress, my favorite performer. I'm actually going to get to see her in February, and yes, I most certainly will cry seeing her on stage. And I'll watch just about anything that she's in except for movies with Zionists. But anyway, I was super excited for Spellbound, and it was very, very cute. Definitely skews a bit younger. I think I'm a little older than the target audience for this movie, but it was a very cute, very wholesome watch, and I got to listen to Rachel Zegler sing, which is always a treat. Like, I'm not gonna lie, this movie wasn't anything groundbreaking, definitely not the best movie I've ever seen ever, which is why it's not in a higher tier, but it still had a sweet message, and I still really enjoyed it, so I would check it out if you want something just like nice and wholesome to watch. Okay, I know that so many people have had so much to say about Netflix's Avatar: The Last Airbender, and as someone who only watched the original cartoon for the first time last year, I realize that I'm probably not the most qualified person to speak on this, but I actually felt like the Netflix show was fine. Definitely not the best show I've ever seen, obviously, but not the worst either. It's definitely not the best adaptation, but I definitely do not think that it was as egregious of a failure of an adaptation as Fate the Wing Saga or the Avatar Last Airbender M. Night Shyamalan movie, which for everyone who was saying that this show was just as bad or even worse than that movie, like, I think that y'all are absolutely out of your minds. Like, y'all are being very dramatic because this show at least has some redeeming qualities. There is nothing redeemable about that whitewashed, soulless fucking movie. Like, come on, y'all. I get that the show is not a perfect adaptation or a masterpiece by any means, but let's use our brains. For one thing, the actors for this show, like the main cast especially, they can act with a capital A. And for me, like, I feel like you can really tell that they did the best with what they were given, and that there were genuinely a lot of beautiful like performances that really moved me genuinely. Like, every Zuko and Iroh scene was so excellent. Also, Lizzie Yu and Daniel Day Kim, I felt as Azula and Ozai, they were so good in those roles. Of course, again, the show is not without its issues. I'm not saying that it doesn't have issues because it has a lot of them. The pacing, all over the place. They took away Katara's rage, which is very incredibly deeply questionable. They made Azula more impulsive, which on its own I feel like wouldn't be the issue, but the fact that it's like Azula, I feel like makes, and I feel like a lot of people agree that what makes Azula's like original character from the original show so iconic of like her as an antagonist was her very like cool, calculating personality as like, and then like kind of like following her descent into madness throughout the rest of the show. Like, like that was like such a core part of Azula. So I feel like them making her more like impulsive in this show and kind of like more temperamental, I feel like kind of undermines that. I feel like she becomes a little bit more like her like original show self by the end of this show. So maybe that will get better throughout the later seasons, but only time will tell. And again, honestly, I can't stress enough, the pacing in the show was a fucking nightmare. Like, it was all over the place. There was so much that was cut from the first season of the original show, and it just felt like we were just flying we were just flying through, because for some reason they were like, yeah, 8 episodes. It was 8 episodes, right? Like, that's enough to adapt the first season of this show, but I don't fucking know. But genuinely, I enjoyed, like, I'm not being facetious, like, honest to God, like, I enjoyed episodes 5 and 6, Spirited Away and Masks. Like, I actually thought that those episodes were pretty solid. Again, not a perfect show by any means. And maybe if the other seasons are better, and I hope that they're better, because I really do love this cast, that this show can crawl its way out of B tier. But for now, as it currently stands, it's a pretty solid B tier for me. Once again, I feel that God Eater is another anime that really suffers from being so short, because the world building and the characters were so cool, and I wish that I could have seen more of them. Like, I was really invested in Lenka and Lindo and Sakuya in particular. They were my personal favorites of the bunch. And like, so I was so bummed when I got to the last episode, because I feel like I just wasn't really locked in until the latter half of the season, and by that time I had already reached the end of the anime. And I know that there's the God Eater video game, which I am very likely going to check out, because again, I am very interested in this world and I want to see more. But I also heard, and I'm pretty sure this is true, that Lenka isn't a character in the game. Like, the protagonist that you play as has a different name, and I don't think that they have the same backstory, which makes me even more bummed, because like, that just means that Lenka's story ends in the anime, and I really liked him. He was genuinely like my favorite character. I really was really interested in him and his story in particular. So the fact that even if I go and like play the video game, that I'm not gonna get that experience, like, again, that his story just ends in the anime, really bums me out. Again, still a really cool anime, really cool characters, some really cool fights, but it just kind of bums me out that, like, this is where Lenka's story ends, and that's the biggest thing of like why this anime isn't higher for me. As I continue to again dip my toes into the world of K-pop, I watched Blackpink Light Up the Sky right after watching Popstar Academy, because I've listened to like a couple of Blackpink songs that I've always liked every Blackpink song that I've heard, and I have a feeling that I'll probably become like an actual fan once I listen to the rest of their music. Like, I'm absolutely loving like what they're each doing as solo artists. Like, I loved Mantra and Moonlit Floor. I have been listening to, also, again, I'm a very new fan, so please please be gentle. Is it Rosie or Rose? I keep like, because I feel like I've heard people say both and I don't know which one it is, but I've listened to her debut solo album and I really liked it a lot. I've been playing it a lot in the car recently. Number One Girl is my favorite song, and it made me cry. I really liked it a lot. But yeah, I'm really liking their music, and I really liked this documentary because I felt like it was a nice introduction to each of the members, like, again, as a new fan. And I just really liked getting to hear how each of them got their starts, and kind of how like each of their different roles within the group was really cool. The documentary is a couple years old, so it's kind of sort of outdated. So, and because I imagine that so much has changed, especially with again, each of the members like solo pursuits. So I would love to see an updated documentary in the future, but for now I'm just gonna go listen to all of their discographies as a group and as solo artists. I'm gonna be so honest. I could not tell you what the plot of Heaven Official's Blessing is. I could not tell you what's going on. I've watched both seasons. I watched the first season last year and the second season this year. I still have no idea what's going on. I could not tell you. Again, gun to my head, could not tell you what the plot is. But I really like the characters, especially the two main guys. I really like their dynamic, and I want to see how like more of how their relationship develops, their romantic relationship maybe develops. So I'm gonna keep watching. Again, no idea what's going on. Like, I don't know the broader plot. Like, I'm just here for the silly, goofy vibes of these guys, because I think they're silly and goofy, and I like them. So I'm just gonna keep watching anyway, even though, again, I could not tell you what the story is like at all. I'm gonna be honest. The only reason why the Tales of Symphonia anime is in B tier and not C tier is because I'm such a huge fan of the Tales games. But I can very confidently say that this, out of all of the Tales games, like of the anime adaptations that I've watched so far, this is definitely the weakest one. Like, the story of every Tales game is so intricate and detailed and just like long that I think it's very strange that they thought they could fit like the entire story of the game of Tales of Symphonia into just 11 episodes. Like, and I'll be honest, I'm not as familiar with Tales of Symphonia as I am with Tales of Exilia, Tales of Graces, Tales of the Abyss, Tales of Eternia, Tales of Berseria, Tales of like I'm like those are the games I know like the best. But from what I do know, I know that they must have cut out a lot of the story of this game for the anime. Also, this is another thing. Like I forgot her name, but Regal's love interest, she looks like a child in this anime, and it made me deeply, deeply uncomfortable. I'm pretty sure that she was an adult at the time of her death. I think. I think if Google hasn't lied to me. Um, and I don't know if she looked like such a child in back in the game, but seeing her next to Regal, who is this very obviously like big muscular adult man, just made me feel uncomfy. I was like, she looks like she could be your child and not your lover. Like it was really it was like I didn't like that. But I did really like Lloyd and Sheena and the other characters, so it's not like I absolutely like dislike this anime, but it's pretty flawed in terms again like of pacing and yeah, I just feel like there's probably a lot that they left out, and I'm not sure that I would recommend it to like a huge Tales of Symphonia fan, because I feel like if I was like if this like for me my favorite Tales game is Tales of Exilia. If this was like if they had done this with like a Tales of Exilia anime, I would not have enjoyed it. Moving on up to my A tier. I have a lot of things in my A tier, so I'm going to move right along. I will be making a complete Steven Universe video next year because this franchise means so much to me and I have so much to say about it. But even though I watched and loved Steven Universe when I was in middle school, I never actually watched the movie or Steven Universe Future until this year. I stopped watching early into season 5 of the original show because I got really busy with school, and I just never picked it up again. Honestly, because I didn't want it to end because I loved it so much. But now, having seen the movie and Future, I really believe that Steven Universe got such a beautiful conclusion. Like, I really couldn't have hoped for a better ending to the series. For every show or movie or whatever that I say is going to get its own video, I'm going to try to keep very brief so that when I eventually do make that video, I won't have just like completely repeated myself. And that's the case for the Owl House. The Owl House will absolutely be getting its own video next year because this show was everything I hoped for as a queer neurodivergent fantasy lover. Like I knew that I was going to love this show, and I was 100% right. It was completely up my alley. I will never forgive Disney for how dirty they did this show, but for everything that it was, in spite of all of Disney's bullshit, I loved it so much, and I can't wait to talk about it more in my video. Gravity Falls will also be getting its own video next year because, again, as the queer neurodivergent fantasy lover that I am, it was pretty much inevitable that I was going to love this show. I'm dying to get my hands on Journal 3 and the Book of Bill because I can never just like anything a normal amount, and I simply need more Gravity Falls content like right now. As a self-proclaimed anime lover, I realize that it's probably sacrilegious of me for it to have taken so long for me to have watched Death Note, but I finally watched it, and yeah, it's one of the best anime that I've ever seen. Like, are we surprised? No, we're not. Honestly, though, I did get really nervous watching it, like when I first started watching it, that I was like, because I get really nervous watching really popular anime like for the first time because I'm always worried that it's not going to live up to the hype for me. It happened to me with Angel Beats. It happened to me kind of also with Sailor Moon. It also happened to me with Cowboy Bebop. I'm sorry. That one really broke my heart. I really wanted to love Cowboy Bebop. Maybe I'll make a video about that. Anyway, but thankfully that did not happen to me with Death Note. Death Note is fucking incredible. I absolutely love the cat and mouse battle of wits between Light and L. I really loved L as a character. He's such just like a weird little guy, and I love him. And Light, terrifying villain, very weird guy. And I mean that derogatory. Weirdo. I do eventually want to make a video about Death Note, but first I want Adam, again my boyfriend, to finish it because I've seen it, but Adam still hasn't finished it. Because in the episodes we've watched together, Adam's brought up some really, what I feel like are really good points that poke some holes in Light's like master plans that I think would be really interesting to talk about and kind of dissect more. So at some point I would like to make a video like that. Again, I need to get him to finish it first. But yeah, that's something I'm really interested in doing. I absolutely love The Devil's a Part-Timer season 1, so I knew that I was going to love season 2, and I was not disappointed. It had been a while since I had watched the first season when season 2 came out, and I had forgotten just how much that I miss these characters because I love them so much and they really make this anime for me. Like, of course, I'm invested in the world building and the conflicts of Ente Isla and whatnot, but ultimately, Mao, Emmy, Chiho, and the rest of the Ente Isla crew, like, they are the heart of this anime. And the comedic exploration of their moral alignments of who's truly good, who's truly evil, and just like all the gray areas and the nuances, like they also yield some genuinely heartwarming moments that always like make me so emotional. Like, oh my god, I forgot how good this anime is, and the addition of Alice Ramos was so perfect. First of all, she's adorable. I would also protect that child with my life. But the way she changes the dynamic of Mao and Emmy's relationship was so interesting, but also so fun. I haven't seen any news. I tried to look it up, but I haven't seen any news about if The Devil is a Part-Timer is going to get another season of the anime, but I hope it does because I really love this anime. But if it doesn't, I guess I'm just gonna have to read the light novels because I love these characters too much to let them go just yet. I'm gonna be honest, even though I loved the first season of One Punch Man, I didn't know that the second season had already come out until this year. Like, for some reason, that was just not, like, I completely missed it. It was just not on my radar. And I felt like such a dummy because I didn't watch the first season, like, right when it came out, but I watched it, like, a couple years ago. And season 2 came out in 2019. So I was, quite late to the party on this one, but I did watch it and I really enjoyed it. But because it had been so long since I had seen the first season, I had to rewatch it before watching season 2 because, again, even though I remembered really liking it, I couldn't remember like exactly what had happened. And I'm glad that I did because I love One Punch Man. I think it's a really fun superhero story that also, kind of parodies the superhero genre in a way that's really, again, very fun and refreshing. Saitama is a great character. I love that guy. He's so fantastic. He's really like just the guy and he functions so well in the story and I just absolutely adore him. And I feel like season 2 also helped me gain a better appreciation for like all the supporting characters, which was really cool. And honestly, like having watched them back to back, I think that I enjoyed season 2 more than season 1, which I think is definitely like mostly due to there being an overarching villain this season. And by the season again, I mean the season that came out in 2019, but like whatever, okay? Yes, I was really late to watch it, but I still really liked it, so who cares? It's actually really devastating to me that Elemental wasn't marketed better because this movie is so good. It tells such a beautiful story about an immigrant family. It has this great love story between this girl made of fire and this guy made of water falling in love, which, as a hopeless romantic from an immigrant family, hit me so hard and had me sobbing in my college apartment. More like, I need more people to see this movie. If you have not seen Elemental, you are severely missing out. It is so good. If you've been thinking about watching it, let this be the push that you need. It is so sweet and wholesome, but also like such a tearjerker. The animation is so beautiful. Leah Lewis and Mamadou Ache, they were incredible as Ember and Wade, respectively. Like, please go watch this movie. Please give it all the love because it so deserves it. A Place Further Than the Universe is one of those anime that I feel like even for people who don't really like to watch anime, I think would really enjoy because it is just such a beautiful story. Seeing these four girls who were pretty much strangers come together to help Shirsei get to Antarctica so that she could get closure over her mom's disappearance, and then watching these girls form this really wholesome and sweet friendship where you can just tell that even as they're all gonna grow up and probably, go their separate ways, they'll always have this shared experience that will keep them bonded for the rest of their lives. And that is just so special to me. Like, oh my gosh, these girls are so important to me. I love them so much. I had no idea what to expect going into this anime, but I was not disappointed at all. It's a short but still incredibly emotional and impactful story of loss and grief, but also friendship and connection and trying new things and taking risks. And it's just so beautiful, and you need to watch it if you haven't already. It's such a great story. Blue Eye Samurai was really fucking good. I mean, I had a feeling it was gonna be really good. I've only heard good things about it, and I like saw so many people making fan art about it. I was like, okay, I've got to watch it, and it most definitely did not disappoint. Mizu is such a cool fucking character. Oh my god, I love her so much. The fight scenes were awesome. The animation was fan fucking tastic. Just overall a great show. I loved it. I'm really excited for season 2, even though I don't really know where the story's gonna go, but I'm excited nonetheless. I love the show and cannot wait to see what's gonna happen next. Bridgerton went from being a guilty pleasure show for me to a show that I genuinely love a lot, which I feel is mostly due to the show's quality actually improving with each season. Like, I really enjoyed everything past season 1, and season 3 is no exception, which honestly really surprised me because even though I absolutely loved season 2 and Queen Charlotte, I didn't know if I was going to be invested in Penelope and Colin's story because while I really liked Penelope, I did not really care about Colin at all, but I loved this season. It just made me love Penelope so much more, and it actually made me care about Colin. It definitely helps though that friends to lovers is my favorite trope, and Penelope and Colin's friendship is so special to me. Like, I was like, wow, I actually, you know what, I really do love their friendship. And then just watching their relationship evolve, just it made me so happy. Nicola Coughlan and Luke Newton were such gems to watch. Like, oh my god, they stole the show. I binged part 1 the night before my college graduation while I was painting my cap, and it was a delightful experience. So good. Yeah, I love this season, but I must say, I'm so excited for season 4 because I have been in love with Benedict Bridgerton and by extension Luke Thompson since season 1, and I am so happy that he is finally getting his chance to shine. Like, he's finally gonna get the recognition that he deserves, and I'm so here for it. And I'm so excited to see Yeren Ha absolutely demolish it as Sophie. I know she's gonna fucking knock it out of the park already. Like, the little bits of press they've done together, they're so cute, and I can't wait to see them on screen together. Oh my god, I'm so excited. Okay, I'm not someone who typically watches a lot of romance anime. All the romance anime that I've watched before my love story, besides Kiss Him Not Me, were anime that Adam put me onto, but I had heard some good things about My Love Story, and so it's because it wasn't too long, I was like, okay, I'll check this one out. And what I discovered is that My Love Story is such an underrated gem. It is such a cute romance. Like, Takeo and Rinko, they are so sweet together and have actually become genuinely one of my favorite anime couples ever. Also, Suna is one of the greatest friends slash wingmen I have ever seen in a romance story. Again, I'm not typically like a romance anime or even a slice of life anime kind of gal, but Takeo, Rinko, and Suna are such great characters, and I literally had so much fun watching all the shenanigans that they got themselves into. And again, I just thought that Takeo and Rinko made such an adorable couple. I love them so much. I have so many screenshots of them just being the most adorable couple ever, and I love them. After watching Avatar The Last Airbender, like the original cartoon, I knew that I was going to check out The Legend of Korra, obviously. I was already aware that while many people consider The Legend of Korra to be a good show, I feel like the general consensus is that it isn't as good as Avatar The Last Airbender, and I think I would agree with that. Like, don't get me wrong, this is still a fantastic show with great characters, but it's not without its flaws. I think I'm not sure if I'm going to make a The Legend of Korra video. I'm still kind of on the fence about it. I feel like I probably will, but it'll probably be a while because I do want to talk more about the differences between this show and Avatar: The Last Airbender. But I also really loved Korra as like a character, as the main character. She was so special to me. I thought that her arc was really well done, all things considered, and I also loved Asami and Bolin and Mako and pretty much all these supporting characters I really, really loved. I also want to read the comics because obviously that was a big thing of like Korra and Asami's relationship not being like as fleshed out in the show. So I'm really excited to see like them as actual girlfriends. But I did, even so, like I did really enjoy the progression of their friendship, like leading up to their romantic relationship in the show, and I'm just really excited to see more of them because I love them so much. I already made a video about Tales of the TMNT, but as a big fan of Ninja Turtles and the Mutant Mayhem verse, I really like this show. Listen, if you know me, then you know that 2012 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is my favorite show of all time, and therefore my favorite Ninja Turtle show of all time. So it will always and forever be very hard to top that for me because that's my show. But I still really enjoyed Tales of the TMNT. I thought that it was a very cute, very fun, like a good companion to the Mutant Mayhem movie and expanding the Mutant Mayhem verse, and I really liked it a lot. I've never played a Fallout game in my life, and I've never really had any intention to, but I had heard so many good things about the Fallout show, and then I also found out that Ella Purnell was in it, and I was like, okay, I've got to watch this. And honestly, I'm surprised that I hadn't watched this show sooner because I love a good apocalyptic, like post-apocalyptic story, and I really, therefore, enjoyed Fallout. Even if I had to close my eyes during some of the especially violent scenes, I have a hard time stomaching violence like in live action shows, but I still really enjoyed the show. Ella Purnell is always a treat to watch. I of course loved her as Jinx in Arcane, and I also really liked her in Yellow Jackets. I was instantly hooked on the story of the show from the jump. I'm most invested in Lucy, not just because Ella plays her, but because I think she's just such a great character. She's my personal favorite. But I'm also really excited to see what's going to happen with Cooper and Maximus in season 2 as well, and I cannot wait for it. Banania is a very short and sweet anime about cats that live in bananas, and I absolutely adored it. My one thing about it is I'm not sure if the second season was like supposed to be a prequel to the first season, because in the first season, you know, we're on Earth following the bananas who live in like an actual like human person's house, and in the second season we're like on a banana planet, like the banana home planet. So I was a little confused by the change of setting and characters, but it was so cute and so wholesome and silly that it like really didn't matter that much. It's an anime about cats who live in bananas. Like it is just meant to be cute, wholesome fun, and it was exactly that, and I loved it. Everything Everywhere All at Once is obviously a fantastic movie. I might be very late to the party, but I completely understand why it won all the awards. It is just so good. Michelle Yeoh and Stephanie Hsu are actually some of the most talented actors I've ever had the pleasure of watching. And Stephanie, oh my gosh, she was robbed of that award. What was it, the Oscar? She was robbed of that award, man. Like Jamie Lee Curtis wasn't even that good. I'm sorry. Like Stephanie fucking blew her out of the water, like in every possible way in her performance. It's like not even funny. Like it was not even close between them. Like the level of like difference in terms of their performances, like ugh, whatever. Who cares? Stephanie has all of the awards in my heart. Like she's just fantastic. But anyway, my really only like big critique of this movie, and is the reason why it's not like higher on my tier, is because I couldn't watch every scene because of the flashing lights and the fast motions. I get really bad vertigo, so I have to be very careful about like stuff like that. So unfortunately, like I had to like close my eyes like during like pretty like decent chunks of the movie, so it just wasn't that accessible to me in that regard. But it was still such a beautiful movie, such a beautiful story in every sense of the word, and I still really loved it. Bottoms is campy, bloody, gay goodness, and I loved every minute of it. I feel so lucky to be living at the same time as Io Debris and Rachel Sennett, because those two are literally comedic geniuses. Though it's really funny to me because I feel like the premise of this movie only works for me because it's gay. Like I literally would not care like if these were straight people. Like this only works for me because they are queer. Like, this movie just proves that lesbians make everything better. Like, I'm sorry, I don't make the rules. It's the truth. It's fact. It's factually proven. Josie and Isabel's relationship had me screaming, crying, throwing up. They were so cute, like genuinely so sweet, and I really loved their connection. I love them so much. Also, Nicholas Galitzine as Jeff is one of my favorite performances in anything ever. He was born to play that role. It's so funny because I watched him in Red, White, and Royal Blue last year, and I loved him in that. I really love that movie too, and that's just like, this is, Jeff is such a different role and different character from like Henry, and I loved him as Jeff. He was so silly and goofy. Like with Elemental, I need more people to watch Polite Society because it's also a really good movie. It's about this girl who's like an aspiring stunt woman who's trying to save her sister from getting married to this guy who she is convinced is like the epitome of evil. And it's just a really sweet story about sister relationships while also having really fun fight scenes and fun stunts. And it was just a really good, silly time. It's a little campy, a little ridiculous at times, but this is a movie that doesn't take itself like too seriously. Like, it definitely plays into that, and I definitely enjoyed it. So I loved the first Inside Out, but I was very skeptical about Inside Out 2. I wasn't sure if they were going to be able to pull it off. I mean, but given that it is an A tier for me, I think you can probably guess that I feel like they pulled it off. I definitely don't think that it's better than the first movie. The first Inside Out is absolutely like an S tier movie for me. Like, that movie just hit me so hard, and like I remember that movie just like so vividly and loved it so much that like it was always, I don't think that there was ever really a world where Inside Out 2 is going to be better than the first movie for me. But considering that I feel like Inside Out was a movie that like did not need a sequel, but that this movie still had a very sweet, like important message about growing up and introducing the concept of anxiety to younger audiences, I think that this movie did what it set out to do. Not be better than the first movie per se, but still complement it and kind of just like expand the story still in a way that felt natural, and I really liked it. I also love Maya Hawke, and like her as anxiety was so good. And again, Iowa Debris, she is just such a queen. Oh my god, I love Iowa Debris. She's just incredible in everything, and her as Envy was so cute, and I loved her. I don't think I've ever talked about this on the channel, but I have been a Dancing with the Stars fan since season 19, when Bethany Moda, who is, you know, OG YouTuber, lifestyle, fashion girly, who I have loved for so many years, when she was a part of the cast, I believe she got fourth that season. That was also the season that Alfonso Ribeiro, the current co-host, won with Whitney Carson, and I've been a fan ever since. I first started watching purely for Bethany, but I quickly got sucked in and just like absolutely like just fell in love with the show overall. And I must say, I'm so happy that this show has had like a resurgence in popularity, because I was really worried for a moment there that it was gonna get canceled. I felt like people weren't watching it and talking about it, and so I was just really nervous. So it made me really happy to see that people were so tuned in to this most recent season, because it's literally the only reality TV show that I consistently watch. And this season was so good. I feel like the cast was so like everyone in the finals were so close in ability that I literally could not predict who was going to win. Even though I thought that Chandler and Brandon or Steven and Riley should have won because I feel like they had the better freestyles. I'm not going to pretend that Joey isn't an incredible dancer, because he definitely is. Like, he's very talented. And so I don't want to say that his win was undeserved. But again, I feel like I feel like one Chandler was a better dancer, and that Chandler and Steven just had the better freestyles, but that's just my opinion. The season was also very fun for me because I got Adam invested in it. So it was really fun to talk about the dances and the scoring and like share Dancing with the Stars lore. Also, I don't have a great segue into this, but Derek and Haley's dance that they did during the most memorable year week was one of the most beautiful dances that I've ever seen on the show, and I will never ever be over it. Oh my god. I was I was a mess. I was just a puddle from tears after that dance. It was so gorgeous. And at last, we have finally reached my S tier. If you have watched enough of my videos, none of what's in my S tier should really surprise you. I'm gonna keep these brief again because I've made videos on most of these titles. If I haven't, I plan on making videos about them within the next year, starting with, of course, the Legend of Vox Machina is my favorite show that I've seen this year, to literally the surprise of no one. I've made 3 videos about this show, and I plan to make more in the future. This show just checks off all the boxes on everything I could ever want in a fantasy show. The story is great. The characters are spectacular. The world building is fantastic. I absolutely adore the voice actors. There are so many cool fight scenes. The comedy is great. There are musical numbers. I just love this show and everything about it so much. I've watched it 3 times all the way through, and I'll probably watch it a 4th time at least before the year is over. I love it so much. If The Legend of Vox Machina didn't exist, Arcane would easily be my favorite show from this year, but The Legend of Vox Machina does exist, so it isn't. But Arcane is still a phenomenal show. I'm currently working on an Arcane video that will come out early next year, so I won't say too much right now. I'll share all of my extended thoughts in that video. But oh my god, I love this show so much. Like so many people, I had been anxiously awaiting season 2 ever since I first watched season 1 a couple of years ago, and they did not disappoint. This show ruined me, but in the best way possible. It was a complete roller coaster ride from start to finish. The animation is out of this fucking world. It is so beautiful. Every single shot from the show looks like it belongs in a museum. Like, literally, they should just make a new museum all like that is all Arcane, because literally that it deserves nothing less than that for all the beautiful, beautiful art that is this season. Like, and the story and the characters were so incredible. They made me cry relentlessly and had me staring at the wall by the time I finished. But I loved it so much and wouldn't trade it for the world, even if I do want to box the writers for causing me so much emotional damage. But again, season 2, I will share more of my thoughts later, but this show, just so good, man. I've talked about before on the channel how much I love Abbott Elementary, but it's been a while. So I first started watching the show my junior year of college when my roommate Juliana recommended it to me. She was like, you have to watch it. And I was instantly hooked. I watched it 3 times by myself, and then I also got Adam into it, and now we watch it together, and it's just so much fun. And I swear, it feels like this show is just always getting better and better. I feel like every new season, I love it more than the last. I don't know how Quinta Brunson does it. Actually, I do know, because she is literally the most talented human ever. The characters and the jokes just get better with each season. I love how everything has developed. Abbott is just such a feel-good show while also being so incredibly hilarious, but also so great at hitting all of those more emotional, serious beats in a way that it just always resonates so much. And I love it so much. I literally recommend this show to everyone. It's so amazing. Literally, this is, to me, I'm like, this is the show where I'm like, because I get, as like a big fantasy person, I'm like, I know that not everybody likes fantasy, but this is a show that I feel like I can really recommend to everybody, and I do recommend it to everybody. Watch the show if you have not seen it already, because you are doing yourself a disservice if you are not watching this show. That is how much you need to watch this show right now. Again, like I said earlier in the video, I've got a full Steven Universe video planned for next year, because this show is so important to me for so many reasons. Getting to watch the complete series this year, like for the first time, felt like coming home, and it made me incredibly emotional. I'll save all of my sappy reflections for, again, the Steven Universe video, but I just fucking love this show, man. What a great show. Jujutsu Kaisen is begrudgingly my favorite anime I've seen this year. If you've seen my JJK video, then you would know that I say begrudgingly because this anime has irrevocably traumatized me, but I guess I still enjoyed it, and I'll guess that I'll tune into the next season when it comes out and watch all my favorite characters die. I have such a love-hate relationship with this anime. It's not even funny, but I do love it. Sort of. Maybe. I guess. Haikyuu is my favorite anime of all time, and while I'm very bummed that they decided to adapt the rest of the manga into movies instead of more seasons of the anime, Adam and I were really psyched to see Haikyuu the Dumpster Battle in theaters. And you know what? We really enjoyed it. Neither of us have read the Haikyuu manga in full, though we have been told by friends who have that they did cut some really cool scenes out of the movie. But all things considered, we both, like me and Adam both thought that if there was a match for them to make into a movie, Karasuno versus Nekoma, actually we felt like it worked really well. It was a really cool match, and because we're already so familiar with Karasuno and Nekoma as teams, there was a lot more focus on the actual game and just how evenly matched they were in their abilities. And that was just really cool to see. And just getting to watch Haikyuu on the big screen was also really fun. And it was a good time. The Good Place is another show that my old roommate Juliana put me onto. So thank you, Juliana. You have incredible taste and I miss you. She's not watching this, but in case somehow in some way you come across this, one, I'm mortified that you've come across my YouTube channel, but again, you have great taste and I do miss you very much. Anyway, I fully plan on making a video about The Good Place because the writing of the show, oh my god, is so incredible. Every character is literally so well written and their arcs are so perfect, and I literally love each of them so much. They mean so much to me. Not to mention that this show is so cute and hilarious, and it makes philosophy fun, which isn't something I ever thought I'd ever say. Like, I cannot rave about the show enough, so trust me, it will be getting its own video. I didn't have Wicked in my script because I only just saw it yesterday, and I finished the script for this video the other day, but I saw Wicked last night with my brother, and it was everything I could have ever hoped for and more. Wicked was the first musical I ever saw on Broadway ever, and it will always have such an important place in my heart because of that. And it's also just such a great story, and I love it so much. And oh my gosh, Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande and Jonathan Bailey, and just, oh my god, they were so good. Oh my god, I love them so much. And I can't wait for part two. Oh my god, I know I'm gonna sob my eyes out with part two. I didn't really cry that much with part one, but part two was going, oh, they're going to destroy me. I can already feel it. They are going to ruin me, and I will gladly let them. And last, but certainly not least, A Nonsense Christmas with Sabrina Carpenter was everything I could have wanted in a Christmas special. I've been a huge Sabrina Carpenter fan for years, and it means so much to me to see her finally get the recognition that she has so rightfully deserved, because she is literally so talented. I just, oh my god. But that's like that could be its own separate video. The performances for this special were so good. Of course, like the live performances of the songs from her Fruitcake EP were amazing, and the covers with the musical guests, they were perfection. Although I will say, I think that they should have chosen a different song for Sabrina to sing with Shania Twain, because I feel like the song did not really suit Shania's voice. Like, she still sounded good, but I felt like her voice was just too overpowering for that particular song. Sabrina sounded really great though. And oh my god, Sabrina covering Last Christmas, which is already one of my favorite Christmas songs ever, with Chapel Roan, actually changed my brain chemistry. It was perfection. It was so excellent. Chapel looked so good in her straight cosplay. um, and the skits, they were really cute. I love that Quinta Brunson and Sean Astin were in it. It was just a silly, like, good time, and I loved it so much. 10 out of 10. Highly recommend. And I desperately need Sabrina to, like, put out an EP album of, like, the performances from this special on streaming, because I need to, like, constantly be playing those covers and those live performances. Like, I need them right now. Please, Sabrina, I'm begging you here. Alright, that's all I have for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. For anyone curious, this year I watched 9 animated shows, 10 live action shows, 14 anime, and 12 movies, a total of 45 things that I've watched this year, and yet I've really only, like, just barely scratched the surface of my watch list. I fully plan on making a video like this for 2025 next year, so let me know in the comments down below what you think I'll watch next year, or something that I should watch next year. I'm always open to new recommendations. Once again, That's all I have for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I upload Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, except when I don't, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye, guys!